Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for High Impact Leadership. My name is John Little. I am the owner and founder of the Winner's Edge Coaching. And today I'm going to share with you a bit of a preview of what I have coming up here. I'm going to be launching a leadership development cohort using my Embrace framework. And I'm going to be doing that here in the next few weeks, probably looking at launching it in March. But today is going to serve as a bit of a preview as to some of the things that you will learn as part of that cohort. And even if you don't happen to join the cohort, there's going to be some things today that you're going to learn that will help you along your leadership journey. So if you're out there, I got you on Facebook, I have you on LinkedIn as well as YouTube, all of those live streamed right now, or if you're catching the replay, I just want to welcome you to this. Hopefully you'll get some really good tips out of this, really good ideas on what the content looks like, what that experience may be. And I'll share a lot more with you about how to get involved as we get towards the end of today's session. But as for now, want to go ahead and dive right in. If you are out there watching, go ahead and hop into the chat. Just a quick hello with your name and where you're from, just so that way we get a little bit of conversation going. That would be appreciated. So what we're going to talk about is high impact leadership, as I mentioned off the top, and really helping you to get some of those cheat codes that can help to expand your platform, increase your visibility. And if you're looking to get promoted, if you're looking to position yourself for a promotion or for a new job, these are things that are going to help you to inspire the people around you to get greater influence and then ultimately grow your income. So let's go ahead and dive right into our content for today. So there's really a couple of different distinctions that we look at. We talk about the difference between managers and leaders. And really those words sometimes do get kind of mixed and blended together, but really they're two distinct functions that people have. So managers have to do the process of doing some leading, and leaders as well have to manage. But really when it breaks out, what we're looking at are some of the core fundamentals. When you look at a manager really focuses on the processes of getting things done. They really focus on the nuts, the bolts. They focus on the day-to-day. They have that transactional mindset of getting things done and accomplishing tasks, almost like a checklist type of approach. They're really focused solely on the work, getting the work done and accomplished. And what that does is that brings comfort to them. So they seek that comfort of the task being accomplished, as opposed to a leader. Leader is a little bit different. So one thing, a leader is not tied to only a position. Anybody can lead. It's really more about the mindset that somebody brings to what they do. But leaders typically will inspire people to get action, inspire people to act, rather than approaching it from the mindset or the approach of compliance or the approach of getting things done just for the mere fact of accomplishment. A leader inspires people to action to get things done. Still, the ultimate goal is productivity, being able to get things accomplished and move forward. But it's through that inspiration. And really, leaders are transformers. When you're leading, when you're influencing, you're really transforming the way that somebody behaves. And you're doing that through a people focus, connecting with them as an individual, connecting with them as a person. And that's a little bit more opportunity for risk, because you lose some control when you're leading, and you're leading people, you're growing them, you're developing them to be able to accomplish tasks rather than doing it yourself. That's a difference between a manager and a leader. A leader really does give a lot of their control up to those that they are leading to get things done. And that inherently is more risky. But also from a vision standpoint, from the standpoint of what leaders are expected to do and what they're challenged to do, is to have a forward-thinking vision, to have a broader view, a bigger scope on the things that need to be done. And that is inherently more risky as well. So what does that look like? What are some of the components of that? What are some of the key things that a leader has to have? Well, the first thing a leader has to have is a strong emotional intelligence, right? So there's been a ton of research out there, and then one of them is noted here on the screen, that Carnegie Institute of Technology recognized that 85% of your success comes from your EQ, as opposed to just 15% of what your technical knowledge and what you can do, your hand to hand, or your tactical things that get done is only 15% of your success. But really, your emotional and your human engineering is what drives 85%. And the biggest part with that is your self-awareness and how self-aware you are. That's where it starts. Is the more that you can understand yourself, more that you can understand the things that drive you, more that you can understand your fears, your challenges, more that you can understand the things that make you feel rewarded and make you feel as though you're satisfied and effective. The more that you can understand yourself, the better you can understand yourself, the better leader you can be, because it all starts with self-awareness. It all starts with you being aware and mindful of why you react the way that you do, about where your emotions are at any given time, about how you're coming across to people, how people are receiving you. All of that is part of self-awareness. Once you have a strong sense of self-awareness, or even as you're just starting to gain in self-awareness, that allows you to then have greater self-control, where you are able to now recognize when feelings are coming up and manage through those. You can recognize when fear is starting to creep in, recognize what that fear is, where it's coming from, and then how do you manage it so that way you aren't getting derailed by those fear and you're choosing those appropriate actions. So once you have that self-awareness, you're working on yourself, you're learning yourself, you're understanding yourself, you recognize how you can now have greater control over things that are under your control. Then you can start to leverage that knowledge and start to understand others. You can start to understand how people are wired differently. And you can understand how they may be interpreting certain situations, how they may be experiencing things. And then through that lens, you're able to then navigate those interactions with the different people. And the more that you're able to navigate interactions with different people, the more successful that you can be at actually leading them, because all of those are part of your EQ. And a big part of your EQ is understanding how people are wired. So there's a couple of models that I am certified in. I'm certified in DISC, the DISC model of human behavior. I'm also certified in Myers-Briggs. And through those certifications and through those programs, and both of those are personality assessments, they help you to get a greater understanding of who you are, how you're wired, what your personality is. It doesn't fully define you. It doesn't say that you are one thing or you are something else, but it does give you at least an indication of where your preferences tend to lead you. And so with that, the colleagues that I worked with before kind of blended the two. And we called it the people formula. What the people formula does is it takes the best of Myers-Briggs and DISC, but really it looks at opposites, and it asks you to kind of self-select what are some of your preferences. So you have extroverted or outgoing preferences, you have introverted or reserved preferences, and that is really just kind of how you approach the world, like what your motor is, where you find the most comfort. You also have either a thinking or a transaction or a task focused preference, or you have a feeling or a people or a relationship focused preference, right? And that's really just kind of how you want to interact with the world, where you find that where you have the most confidence and comfort. And when you look at how those two opposites combine and then kind of joining the two, so you have a linear inclination to be either more extroverted or outgoing and task focused, more extroverted or outgoing and people focused, more introverted and people focused, or more introverted and task focused. And really, the blend of those helps you to start to understand yourself. And that's a big part of what I do with the Leadership Development Accelerator is we with that boot camp, we get into the nuts and bolts of that personality model and give you an opportunity to really go through that path, run down that journey of self-discovery, and really grow your self-awareness, understand how you're wired, understand the things that make you tick. I'm telling you, that it's been a game changer for so many folks when they really start to understand who they are and how they're wired. And doing all that really helps to get to that place of self-control. And when you're able to kind of work through your own self and you're able to regulate yourself, here are some of the benefits that you'll recognize, and you'll be able to almost subconsciously at a certain point, once you grow in your self-awareness and you recognize where your fears, where your triggers are, also where you are best and how you're best positioned to succeed, it allows you to really regulate yourself so that way you do have appropriate behaviors at the appropriate time and for the appropriate reason. And then calibrating those through the interactions that you have on a day-to-day basis. And then here's a question that you ultimately will ask yourself in a lot of situations is, am I responding in this moment or am I reacting? The more that you have grown your self-awareness and your self-control, the more likely you are to be responding in a moment, because you're now responding from the standpoint of an emotional intelligent response, right? Instead of reacting. And reactions are generally based off of our emotions. And if our emotions aren't under control, if we're not in tune with our emotions, if we don't understand why we're feeling what we're feeling at any given moment, then we tend to react. And our reactions are usually short term. Our reactions are usually designed to either protect ourselves or to help ourselves in the moment. But in a reactionary mode, you're also not thinking bigger picture. You're not thinking implication. You're often not thinking what may happen as a result of that reaction. The reaction is often very just immediate and trying to either solve something quickly or trying to move past something because it's causing fear or discomfort. So that's a big question that you start to ask yourself the more that you grow in your self-awareness and self-control is this the appropriate behavior at the appropriate time for the appropriate reason? And am I responding or reacting? So the next thing that we'll talk about as part of this, and this is really a key and foundational element, is trust, right? Without trust, you can't have anything. Trust is the foundation for any relationship, whether it be a business or a personal relationship. You have to have trust. And so with trust, especially from a leader standpoint, leaders have to be able to demonstrate some comfort with being vulnerable, right? Got a great story from one of the cohorts that I taught years ago and was talking about vulnerability right off the top. And this person just right away said, nope, can't do it, not interested. That's just not something that I can do in my role because of the certain dynamics. And so as we started to unpack it a little bit, we discovered that their interpretation of vulnerability was weakness, right? Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability means that you are willing to be yourself. You're willing to show yourself. The reason that we start with self-awareness and self-control is it helps you be your true, best, authentic, and genuine self. And when you are in tune with that self, that allows you to be vulnerable without having that fear. Because as a leader, you want to be able to be vulnerable, but still show strength. And vulnerability is ultimately a significant show of strength, but it allows you to be a person and not a position. It allows for the people who are on your team, the people who are reporting to you, the people that you have influence over to recognize you as the person that you are and not just something that they can't connect with because they don't feel like that you're being open. Because often we need our teams to be vulnerable with us as well, because that vulnerability is a big part of trust. And so how can I trust my leader if I think that they're holding something back from me? How can I trust my leader if I don't feel like they're being fully authentic with me? How can I trust my leader, and how can I be vulnerable? How can I come to my leader and say, hey, I really don't know how to do this. I really need some help. I need assistance. I need clarity. I've got an issue I've got to talk through. I've got this situation that I need help with. It's hard for people to get to that place. And without a leader being vulnerable, it makes it that much harder for them to feel as though they can come to you in comfort. So that's where that vulnerability has to come into place as you're building trust. It allows for you to have that confidence that your team members' intentions, what they're looking to do, is coming from a good place. And also it builds that confidence within your team that when they come to you with vulnerabilities, and as you're establishing the culture within your team, if you're establishing culture with those that you lead, you want that culture where people are able to be vulnerable, where that psychological safety exists, where there is vulnerability that's allowed, and it's not going to be leveraged. It's not going to be used against you. It's not something that will be then taken out of context and then used to harm you, right? That's where people get fearful of being vulnerable. So how do you get to that place? Well, first you have to start with a few mindset shifts, right? One of the first mindset shifts is that you want to accept and appreciate differences for what they are. Just because we have differences does not necessarily make us different. So we may see the world, we may experience the world, we may have had different perspectives that we bring. And that's fine. We want to accept those as that is your true and genuine feeling. I don't necessarily have to agree with it. Doesn't mean that we're going to agree on everything. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be a kumbaya. But I need to accept and appreciate that you have differences. You need to accept and appreciate that I have different ways of seeing things. And then how can we come together and blend the both or the combination of those approaches to make sure that we can get the best output, best outcome, best result. One of the ways that we can do that is to approach the world through the lens of curiosity and not the lens of judgment. When we're curious, we ask more questions. When we're curious, we want to learn. When we're curious, we have an open mind and not a closed perspective. So we want to bring all of those things, and then we want to recognize that people are individuals that have value, and that value may be different for everyone. But the more that I can recognize that you have value and I want your unique value to contribute to a team, the better that makes me as a leader. And if you're an aspiring leader or an existing leader, this is one of the simple things that you can start doing today is you can start to recognize the value that other people bring and articulate that value. Share with them. Here's what I recognize about you. Here's the value that you bring. And here's where I appreciate that value from you as an individual on the team. And then ultimately focusing on other people's needs. I talk about emotional intelligence all the time, and really it's almost a backwards way of being selfish, right? The more that I can understand you, the more that I can learn you, the more that I can focus on meeting your needs, the more likely that my needs are going to be met as well. Because in the way of doing things and the way of getting things done, the more that I can leverage your strengths, that's going to help us all get things done. And then we end up all succeeding and looking good as a result. So a part of this and a part of how we build trust is this model called the trust ladder. And I absolutely love this model. This has been a game changer for so many leaders that I've worked with, just understanding how trust is built, right? And now how trust is built, it's really, really simple, but you have to understand that there are differences in people and there's differences in how we approach the world. Okay. So how we think differently, our preferences generally influence how we build and ultimately rebuild trust. So let's start at the bottom here of the trust ladder. For those who have thinking preferences or task-oriented preferences, they tend to start with transactional trust, which means I must first trust you. I must first see your evidence of work over time. I must see your accomplishments, your credentials. What you do, what you show, what you prove routinely is most important to me as I am building trust with you. Now, on the other side, those who have people preferences or feeling preferences, they want that relational trust. They want to first like you. They want to buy into you as a person. They want to try to build a relationship with you. They want to see the things that make you you, because they want to buy into you. They want that personal connection with you. They want to be able to understand you as a person. What you do is fine, but they really want to know you for you first as they're building trust. And now here's where that game changer came into play for one of my leaders that I worked with. Been a leader for 30 years. Said had never, ever in his career considered that someone had to first like them before they would trust them, because he was very strongly on that task side. And his mindset always worked as I'm going to build trust by showing you what I can do and showing you over and over and over again. And that's how you're going to trust me, and vice versa. That's what he was looking for from everybody. He was looking for everyone to constantly prove to themselves, to him, prove that they could do things, prove that they could get the job done, prove that they could accomplish things. And that's how he built trust. He never even considered the other side. And he said, this explains so many things. Just that light bulb moment that happened was one of those special moments that I'll always remember. This is something that happens over time. Right now, again, on the side here with transactions, for those who have those thinking preferences, the task-oriented preferences, that trust is built based off of performance, based off of consistently performing at a high level over time. On the other side, it's based off of feeling. The more that I get to know you, the more that I learn you as a person, the more that I learn things about you, the more that I find the things that we connect with, that's how I'm going to start to trust you more. And as I continue to trust you, then I'm going to continue to like you. And I'm going to continue to, now I'm interested in what you can do. Now I'm interested in what you can accomplish. Now I'm interested in the tasks that you can accomplish. Same thing on the thinking side. The more that you show me evidence over time that I can trust you, now I start to like you. Now I want to start to get to know you a little better. Now I'm interested in more of your personal side because you've established that foundation that I can trust you. And the higher that we move up on that ladder, the more that trust will grow. Now, this is not just a one-way ladder, right? There are times that if you fall down, if there are times that you either betray the task-oriented person and you don't accomplish what you said you were going to accomplish, or you didn't do what you said you were going to do, that's going to drop you probably back down towards the bottom of the ladder. Same thing on the personal side. I'm sorry, on the people side, the feeling preference. If there's things that are starting to cause me to question your character, to question if you are who I thought you were, then my trust is going to erode and you may go back down towards the bottom of the ladder. And those things have to be built back up again. But just understanding how this trust ladder works and how people build trust differently is such a game changer for so many people. And if you are an emerging leader or if you're an existing leader, then this is something that you should really take hold to and really think about. How do I build trust? What's important for me to build trust? What's important for me as I'm building and developing that trust in people? And then what does that look like to the outside world? And then are there blind spots that you have that you didn't recognize before? When you don't have that vulnerability-based trust on teams, here are some of the things that can happen, and none of them are really that good, to be honest with you. When you have teams that aren't vulnerable, then you have people who are more willing to hide or conceal mistakes and weaknesses from one another because they're afraid of what may be said or done. They're hesitant to offer help and contribute to others because they maybe don't trust what's going on. They don't understand the process, or they maybe aren't as knowledgeable as they should be, and they're afraid to ask for help in certain situations. Other things that happen is people will jump to conclusions and they'll jump to assumptions, and they're typically going to be negative conclusions and assumptions because there is not that trust, there is not that grace that exists between team members on the same team when there is invulnerability, when there's not a strong layer of trust. And ultimately, it ends up wasting people's time and energy because we're just trying to kind of play around the fringes and we're not fully invested. It makes it a lot harder to be successful when you have a team that does not have vulnerability-based trust. So as a leader, that's one of the first places that I would start with how do I create that environment within my team where there is vulnerability-based trust. So here are some of the things that you can do. As a leader, you can admit your own weaknesses and mistakes. You can help people to, again, see that you are vulnerable. You can give people the benefit of the doubt before just automatically jumping to that negative conclusion. That grace and that space is something that I always talk about as being critically important. I'm going to talk next about this SBI open communication model, but it's something that can really help you to build trust when you have clear and strong communication practices within your team, where people are able to bring questions, concerns, praise, feedback, whatever the case may be. They're able to bring those to the team in a constructive way. And then you ultimately want to have the things that are going to help the team grow and be stronger and work closely together. So when I was on a team that we had really, really great strength, we had really, really great trust, we had really good vulnerability, we had great communication, I looked forward to every opportunity I could to get with that group because I knew that it was going to be productive. I knew that I was going to be able to get something out of it. I knew that I would learn something and I would be able to share something. And I knew that I was going to get my bucket filled in one way or another. So those are the things that happen when you have those. You actually look forward to working together. You look forward to meeting. You look forward to collaboration. You look forward to coming together. You look forward to celebrating each other's successes. Those are the things that you want on a team. Those are the things that you want as a leader. And when you have those as a leader, that's only going to make your star shine even brighter. So if you're not yet a leader, because you may be saying that, you may be saying, well, John, that's great, but I'm not quite there yet. Start to do the things in your current role, even if that's a manager or an individual contributor. Start to do the things that build trust. Start to do the things that demonstrate vulnerability. Start to do the things that you would want to see in your leader, or things that you would want to emulate as a leader for your teams to see. That's what's going to raise your visibility within an organization to help you get promoted to that next level, when you're already doing the behaviors that you want to see when you get to that leadership role. All right, so let's talk about conversations. Let's talk about communication and dialogue. There's something that everybody brings to conversations and dialogue, whether they recognize it or not, and that is intentions. And a lot of times we want to have positive intentions because we recognize that poor intentions destroy dialogue. And what are some of those poor intentions that I'm talking about? When you're coming into a conversation, whether it be business or personal, and you have a certain goal or outcome or intention in mind. Sometimes it's you want to save face, you want to protect yourself, you want to make sure that you come out unscathed, you want to end up looking good in the eyes of someone else. You want to try to keep the peace when a situation is going on rather than actually resolve the conflict. Sometimes we want to avoid the conflict altogether. If there is a conflict, if there's a confrontation, if there's a difference of opinion, if my intention is to win, that means that you have to lose. And in that case, nobody wins in a business setting, right? We want to find ways where we can get to the most positive, productive outcome without people having to lose. When my intention is to be right, again, that means that somebody else has to be wrong. Now, there may be times where there is information that needs to be transferred, where knowledge needs to be conveyed, when there are things that need to be defined between right or wrong. But even that, the intention for the conversation in those situations, it shouldn't be that I have to be right and someone else has to be wrong. It's an opportunity to educate and share in that situation, right? And then when there's an intention to punish or blame, then that again, that's kind of a power move. It's kind of a leverage point that you're exerting. Like you want to demonstrate that for whatever reason, but ultimately, if you want to punish or blame someone, then that's not going to have a positive impact on a conversation. Like that's not going to result in a dialogue. That's going to result in a monologue or an argument. And an argument, even though it's going back and forth, that's not a dialogue because you're not actually moving towards any type of resolution or outcome. So how do you approach conversations to ensure that you're having healthy and productive dialogue? Well, one of the first things is try to understand, what are the common objectives? What are we trying to accomplish here? What are we trying to get done? Also recognize that there are multiple versions of people's perception of the truth. And the best way to understand people's perceptions of the truth is to listen, right? If you remix those letters, then it remixes to silent. You can't effectively listen when you're talking. You can't effectively and actively listen when you're waiting to respond rather than listening to understand. Okay. And that's very common that people will do. And a lot of times they do it again on the subconscious level, is they listen to respond or react and not listen to understand. When you do that, it makes it harder to have a healthy and productive dialogue. You want to create clarity and buy-in. You want to get people on the same page. You want people to be able to buy into what our go-forward strategy is as we're having conversations and trying to get to those ultimate results. And then another big part is we want to strengthen relationships. I talk a lot about relationships in the work that I do, whether it be around emotional intelligence, whether it be through the Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp. All of the things that I focus on as a leader is building those strong, authentic, genuine relationships, because that is going to be the number one thing that's going to be the foundation of your success, is your ability to build strong relationships. I don't know what your business is. I don't know what your widgets are. I don't know what your processes are. All of those things can be maximized by having strong relationships within the team, by having strong relationships based off of vulnerability, based off of accountability, based off of team support and engagement. You get those parts in place, and you're going to have a strong and solid team. So what are some of the things that successful people know? What do successful people know? Well, successful people know that success is not always getting people to see things your way. It's not always getting people to change to suit your expectations. It's being able to have those conversations. It's being able to listen, to learn, to engage, to adapt. It's being able to take all of those things, bring all of those things to the table through that lens of curiosity and humility, and then be able to talk out and be able to find the solutions, to bring the resolution, to be productive. When you have issues, when you have conflict, resolve those in such a way that you're able to move forward as a team, and you're not acting out when people don't respond the way that you want them to. So let's talk about, again, this healthy and productive dialogue and how do you do it, right? Here are some of the things that you want to focus on. Here's some of your goals. You want to resist or give up resisting others' ideas and trying to convince them that your way is the only way. When there are issues or challenges, we don't want to avoid them. We don't want to work around them. We want to address those head on and resolve those the best that we can. And then the best thing we can do is we can take responsibility for allowing those things to come to the table and then to have that healthy, productive dialogue. As a leader, it really is incumbent upon you. It's really your responsibility to lead that conversation effectively. And what that does, when you have that healthy, productive dialogue, when you're able to have difficult and challenging conversations, and you do it in the right way, and you do it in a way that is effective and that lands with the people who you're working with and those that you may be leading or influencing. Here's what it does. It builds within your team these four things on the left-hand side. It builds that respect, the trust, the credibility, the honesty. All of those things are such positive attributes that you can have on your team, because then that translates to what you see on the other side of this slide, where you can get the results. When you see results on a consistent basis, you see positive results, you see growing results, you see and recognize and feel people that are appreciated on the team. And when people are appreciated on the team, then they're going to more than likely give what's called discretionary effort. So what's that discretionary effort means is, as a result of high engagement, I'm not just going to come to work and just give you the bare minimum. I'm not just going to float to get by. I'm not just going to come and show up because I have to be there through compliance. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my absolute best every time that I can. I'm going to be innovative. I'm going to be creative. I'm going to be engaged. I'm going to listen. I'm going to challenge respectfully when I hear things that I think could be better. All of those things are part of getting results, being appreciated. It helps me be more effective. And then it helps me to feel as though I'm a part of the bigger picture. And that's what everybody wants. And that's what teams can help you to achieve, is when you feel like that they're part of when people feel like they're part of the bigger picture, then that really allows them to connect. And it really allows them to, again, feel as though that they can give their all because it actually matters. So how do you do this? What are these steps to healthy and productive dialogue? There's a much bigger and broader framework that I share in that Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp. We have an entire module just built around communication. But here are just some of the highlights. Before you get into the conversation, you have to first start with you, right? You have to identify what's the conversation that needs to be held, that I need to have. And I need to control the story that's in my head before I enter into that conversation. Next thing that we need to do is we need to focus on what are those goals? What do we want to do? What are the goals of the dialogue? What's the desired outcome? And then hold that conversation well using that SBI open model that I referenced before. And SBI simply stands for situation, behavior, impact. You start with talking about the situation, talk about sharing the facts. Then you share what's the behavior that was observed or experienced, and then what was the impact on you as an individual. I'm telling you, that is another one of those game changer moments. When you can master that SBI conversation, you can have a difficult conversation, whether it be personal or professional, about just about anything. And then ultimately, you open the door to dialogue. This is not a monologue where you just recite to someone, here's the situation, here's the behavior, and here's how it made me feel, end of story. That's not how it works. You then open up the floor to dialogue. Is that how you experienced it? What are your thoughts on that? What was your perception? Like, all of those things then invite the other person into the conversation. And that's ultimately where you are going to have that good dialogue. And then after that, what's next, right? Are there things that need to be followed up on? Is there a plan that needs to be put into place? And then how are you going to hold yourself and how are you going to hold others accountable? So, gone through a number of things here so far. Just really quick in the chat, if you can just kind of throw in there, this has been helpful. If you've had an aha moment, would love to hear anything that you may want to share as a result of what you've heard so far. And as you're doing that, I'm going to pivot into change. So all of these are part of this Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp. We've got individual modules on all of these elements, and I'll talk more about that, as I said, at the end. But a lot of times when it comes to change, this can be the situation that we're in. We're so focused on doing what we're doing that we're not even interested in stopping long enough to recognize that there could be something else out there that could be more beneficial to you. That's why I absolutely love this little comic here, because this, I think, it's just so emblematic of corporate America. So frequently, unfortunately, we're so busy doing. We don't recognize that there could be a better way. But here's the thing. When it comes to change management and change leadership, the better you are, the more in tune you are from an emotionally intelligent standpoint, the greater your EQ, the better you're going to be at leading effective change. Okay? Because your emotional intelligence, your EQ, impacts change more, the success of change, more than the actual change strategy. Why is that? Because there are people that are required in order for change to be effective within organizations. And when you're looking at what is required of the people for them to be able to change, as a leader, you have to be thinking, so for each individual that's on my team, for the people that I'm leading, for the people that I'm influencing, they are going to be going through change as well, because change is two dynamic elements. It's whatever the organizational change is, and then it's my individual experience through that change. So that's why it's so critically important as a leader for you to have your EQ tuned up, because when your EQ is tuned up, you can recognize the people that are on your team that are doing well with the change and people that may not be doing so well with the change. And then you can calibrate your behavior accordingly with those individuals. Because ultimately, here's the thing about change. It's understanding what people's perspective and approach is as it relates to change, right? Change is something that some people love and some people hate, but change is the one constant that we have in life. And so here's the thing. Change works sometimes. And when it does work, it really depends on the people who are involved in that and how they're led. That's why it's so critically important for you as a leader to have that people lens as it relates to change. People are going to have so many different responses when it comes to their experience with change. Some people just kind of get checked out. They're like, nope, not interested. Let me know when it's done. Some are just not going to be able to adapt and make the change as change is needed to be made. That's the unfortunate part of it. Some are so entrenched in the way that they've done things, either kind of from a work standpoint or in their mind, that they're just not going to be on board with the change. Some of them are just, they're so stuck in their own ways that it's going to be really hard for them to move. Some people are the place that they go to when it comes to change is, we're just going to change everything, just blow the whole thing up and see where everything lands. Like, that's not an effective way to approach change. But as a leader, you have to be mindful of where those people are as well. And some are going to be upset that change is even occurring because they were comfortable, they were happy, they didn't see the point or the purpose of that change. These are all things that you have to know as a leader. And so here is one of your big takeaways. And here is one of the big takeaways as it relates to change leadership, right? And all these things build up to change leadership. When you are a leader and you have change that's happening, you have to do two things. You have to manage the transactional elements of the change, the tactics, the strategies, the systems, whatever those things are. You have to manage those transactions of the change, because that is going to give you your outputs that you're looking for from the change. But you also, as a leader, have to manage the emotional transitions that people will be going through, right? And as you look at this change process, you have to move people from current state to future state. So you have to help them understand and establish what's the pain, what's the risk of staying where they are, what's the risk of staying where we are as an organization, what are the consequences, and then also paint the picture of the remedy. When we get to the other side, here's what we're going to realize. When we get to the other side, here's why this is going to be better. When we get to the other side, here's what that experience is going to be. So as a leader, you have to paint that vision. You have to be able to clearly articulate why future state is so worth it, that I've got to get out of current state. I have to get out of where I am to where I need to be. As a leader, that's a big, big part of you helping people to understand and navigate the change, because change is a process. Okay. So the better that you are at being able to connect with people from that, again, that trust standpoint, that's a big piece of it. From the standpoint of people understanding where they are and where they need to be. Again, you being vulnerable about your approach to trust. being able to communicate using that SBI open model. If somebody is resistant or reluctant to change, being able to talk through where they are, leveraging that social awareness that we talked about earlier, leaning into that social skill that we referenced earlier. All of those things are part of you being an effective change leader. A couple more things that I'm going to talk about here. Situational leadership is another big part, big model that is, excuse me, been a game changer for folks in the past. And situational leadership, it seems like it's really simple. It really seems like the amount of direction that you give to someone and also the amount of support that you give should really help to set up situational leadership and help you lead through situations, the interplay, the connection of those two worlds of tasks and relationship. But here is the missing element that a lot of leaders don't get when it comes to situational leadership. Situations can be large, situations can be small, could be, anything that you're leading through. Could be a project, could be a transition at an organization or in a department. All of those things could be a new process that's being implemented. All of those things are situations that leaders need to calibrate based on the readiness level that their teams have. The readiness level and being able to accurately assess this is either going to make your job a lot easier as a leader, make you a lot more effective, and allow you to be more successful, allow you to have greater visibility in a positive way, or the opposite of all of those things. It's going to make your job harder. It's going to make leading and influencing more difficult. It's going to make connecting with people more difficult. And it potentially can end up being a derailer for you as a leader if you're not able to assess the readiness level. So what does that mean? What's a readiness level? So we're talking about the people that we're leading. There's 4 different levels of readiness that we're talking about. We're talking about those who are unable, who are unwilling, and those who are insecure. So maybe someone they just don't even know where to start. They don't know where to start. They're not confident they're going to be able to be successful, or they're just kind of stuck in their ways. Like, I'm not really ready to even try that, right? That is a readiness level that you need to recognize as a leader, and you need to calibrate how you lead in that situation. Maybe someone is at that next level where they're unable, they don't know how, but they're willing to learn, right? Or they're confident that they'll be able to be successful with some guidance, with some hands-on work, with what they need to find success on their own. There's also that next level where somebody may be able, but there's something that's missing. There's something that's not quite there, and they're either unwilling or they're insecure about being able to be successful. And so when you're in that situation, that's going to be a lot more hands-on with the relationship aspect, a lot more maybe coaching, influencing, giving support, rather than giving the strategy and the tactics that need to be done in order for them to be able to accomplish, because they have the ability. There's just that other piece that's missing. And even when you have someone that is able and they're willing and they're confident, that doesn't mean that they don't need leadership. That just means that you as a leader need to lead them in a different way through those situations. So you'll need to calibrate how you lead in those situations just a little bit differently. So it's the combination of the relationship behaviors and the task behaviors with the readiness level that really makes it a game changer when it relates to working through situations. Now, there's another workshop that I do offer. I'm going to touch on just really, really quickly here. That's our Myers-Briggs Team Challenge. And so with the Myers-Briggs teams, we put our teams together and we look at, as an organization, as a team within an organization, I should say, where do we feel that we have the greatest connections and where do we have the greatest challenges? And once we've gone through this process, it's a number of exercises that we do. We start to look at what do we need to stop doing, what we need to start doing, what do we need to stop doing, and what should we continue doing in order to maintain success. And then also, how are we going to hold each other accountable through that process? And so through that and working through the Myers-Briggs team culture and identifying what are some of the hallmarks that we can recognize, that helps us to build out a team type. And by building out our team type, that's going to allow us to recognize what are the strengths that we have within everybody on our team. When we look at where we have the most saturation in different areas, that helps us understand as a team, here's how we have strength. Here's where we're good. Here are the things we're going to be really good at. But also, here are some potential blind spots. And here are some things that we may struggle with. Now, as a leader, why is that so important? Because when you're a leader and you are looking to build out and grow your team, you always want to look for culture adds, right? I've heard so many times when leaders are doing hiring or doing talent acquisition that they look for culture fits. Wrong answer. You don't need culture fits. Your culture, if you're doing the culture work the right way, if you're consistently focusing on your culture, then your culture will allow for people to come in and find their place within your culture. And also, as you're hiring, as you're looking at the people who you're adding to the team, have that in mind about culture and how they may align with your culture. But oftentimes when leaders talk about looking for culture fits, they mean they look for people who are very similar to what they already have on the team. And that's not a way for your team to grow and be stronger. When you're looking at your team and you're looking at your overall team composition, you want to look at culture adds. What don't we have? What are we missing? What's a perspective that we're missing? What's an experience that we're missing? What are we not seeing? What don't we know based on what we have as a team? And then when it's time to add someone to the team, I want to be, as a leader, mindful of here are the things that are missing. And so these are the things that I'm looking for, because that's going to help to round out the team. That's going to help to make my team stronger. And then when you have that mindset to anytime you're trying to add someone to your team is going to be so much stronger. Your team's going to be a lot more cohesive as well, because your team is going to understand what they have and what they don't have. Your team is going to be able to recognize how they work well and where they have opportunities to work better. So all of those are part of that overall picture that you'll build for your team. So at the end of the presentation here, I do have a few minutes available. If there's any questions that exist, go ahead and pop those into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and just move to the next slide and bring up my QR code. Please go ahead and join me. Follow me on LinkedIn if you're not already following me. Same thing on YouTube. If you're not following me on YouTube, would love for you to subscribe to me, to my channel on YouTube, and then hit that bell for notifications on both LinkedIn and YouTube. So anytime that there is new content, that you will be notified. So I talked about the Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp cohort that I'll be launching. So looking at launching it in March of this year, 2024, looking for 10 individuals who are looking to grow their leadership strength and capability to best be positioned for a promotion here in 2024, really helping you to increase your visibility within an organization or strengthen your skills if you want to look outside of your organization, really looking to help you to increase your influence that you have with people, because that's one of the most important things that you'll need to do as a leader in order to be successful, is to be able to successfully influence others. And then ultimately grow your income, right? When you get promoted, that's one of the big things that you are looking to do. You're looking to make that next step in your career. You're looking to make more money. You're looking to have a better life, a better outcome from the work that you're putting in. All of those things come as a result of the Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp. So what I would love for you to do, if you're interested in that, go ahead and hit that QR code, take you to my website, take you to how you can connect on a free 30-minute strategy session with me. Would love to just talk with you, hear where you are, find ways that I can help to best support you. And if the Leadership Accelerator Bootcamp is going to be a good fit for you, then would absolutely love for you to be a part of that. All right. Well, thank you so much for the time you spent today. If you're watching live on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, thanks for the time today. If you're watching on replay, thank you as well. And I look forward to the next opportunity I have to connect with you. Have a wonderful day.